So this is where I teach you about all the things that you're actually only really interested in. Right? How do I put this plate in the mouth? So we're going to go through a series of videos that gives you a clinical view of what I do in my practice. So we're going to play some videos.
So we're looking to see the fit of the appliance.
So we want to check the fit of the appliance. So we're evaluating the model.
How much spacing?
How much space is there between the solder?
So that side is tight and this
too
side
tight, too tight.
Tight, so we have to decide whether it's too tight. The insert is from left to right. So
we're fitting it left to
right.
right.
Need to be as large on the left side.
So there doesn't need to be much space on the left side, but the right side needs spacing.
On the right, so we'll see.
We take it out from right to left.
If the pilot holes are in the right spot.
Are the holes in the right spot? Are the models damaged?
And we check to see if the model is damaged. You'll see here there's a scratch on the model.
Scratch on the side.
And here, so they will be areas that we will have to look to see if it needs to be adjusted on the appliance. When we look at the plate, we want to see, do we have about 2.5 millimeters in length?
2 millimeters or so for the Y end that enters into the contact area.
See if the solder is complete around.
Does the solder wrap around all the way?
And we want to make sure that the distal end is the one that's closest to the model. Then we look to see whether there's any sharp cut lines.
It's a sharp edge that has to be smoothed.
Just feel
it with your skin.
We're looking to see if there's any undercuts.
Undercuts, sharp edges.
And of course we need to just double check that this is the actual design that we sent, that all the parts meet. The rest wires, the clasps, the rest wires, the catenary wires, and the screw. In this case, they've blocked out the arrow that indicates which direction.
There's normally an arrow that helps the parents.
The laboratory, and the spacing is an error from the laboratory.
But this appliance is flawed by no arrow and by not enough space between the solder and the tooth and the slight damage, plus the rough areas and the cut zones. Right? So when you get a sense of this, then you can start to plan what you're going to do at the insert.
Okay. Yeah. So we want to reduce these rough zones. So just open up the cut zone, clear any rough areas. A lingual frenum will catch here if there's one present. We're feeling for any sharp lines. We're also now looking to see whether the bevel is facing the right direction in the appliance. So we want the bevel towards the tooth, and in this one here the bevel is away from the clasped tooth, so we adjust it. So that the bevel is towards the tooth. Okay, the next is to check to see what amount of divergence there is from the connector wire and the clasp end, and we need a good 45 degrees. We're always looking for that open relationship. If it's closed together so that they're running parallel, then it won't be retentive, and if it's not open enough, you won't be able to insert it over the appliance. The mouth. So it always goes in on the left, patient left, engaging the holes, and we rock it over by pressing on the plastic. So it rolls over. So it's a rolling action.
Goes in left to right, and we're pressing on the acrylic to jump it over the tooth.
So we're checking to see that the appliance divergence is present. We want to check for passive fit first. And the first thing we check is we want to move the clasps out of the way. So we use a bird beak and we just roll it up away very slightly. So we open, it's like the wings, we're lifting it up. Once we've lifted it out of the way, the clasp won't engage in the undercut of the embrasure of the tooth and the contact point. We want a passive fit. We're trying to make sure that the acrylic is sitting nicely. Our thumb is placed on the left E for reference. The appliance is held at right angles. We roll it in. The clasps go down. On the left side, we press on the left plastic. We move across and press on the right plastic. And now it's in. So we're pressing to feel for a rock, and that fits nicely. We want to check to see that the breast wires are in, sitting without sitting tightly against the tooth. And we want to check to see if the cat wires are sitting nice against the teeth. So the plate will have resistance form if the rest wires are down on the 6 and the cat wires are against the centrals. Now, we're trying to see whether this is engaging in the right areas, and that's roughly right. So the next thing is we are looking for retention. So there's very little retention at the moment. So the next step is to bend all the connector wires back down. So we're bending it back down to the original start position. It's a rolling action, so I tend to hold in this manner. So my thumb is on top. I put my index finger in between the arms. I have third finger and fourth finger on the outside and my little finger on the inside. It's a rolling action for all bends, just a very small amount. So that it squares off or even very slightly down. We go back in, again looking for the E with the thumb. It goes in on an angle. We roll it in. We are locating the clasp ends. You'll hear it snap in if you've added the right amount of bend. We're pressing on the plastic on the left, and then we're pressing on the plastic on the right, and you'll hear it snap in. 2 thumbs down on the plastic with the fingers underneath so that you're acting like a vice, looking for a rock. We check for retention by putting the finger underneath the clasp solder and just gently flicking it up, and we're trying to look for rock or lift, and there's none there. We want to check that the clasp ends are engaging under the contacts without impinging on the gum uncomfortably. So we check with your patient. Is that sore at all?
No.
Fantastic. And then we're done. Alright. So again, we are looking at the connector that runs across roughly above the embrasure of the 2 teeth, the E and the 6. We're looking for a divergence of about 45 degrees from the connector to the clasp end. The insert is done. Patient opens. Thumb goes on the E. We're holding with the index, that's the third finger and the thumb on the cat wires. We're holding it at perpendicular level to the path of insert. Thumb gives us a reference. We go clasp in, roll. We are using our thumb to guide where the solder sits over the tooth. You'll hear it snap over the contacts, making sure that it lines up on the right angle on the other side. We're pressing the plastic on the left, and then we're pressing the plastic on the right. We're checking to make sure that the clasp ends are engaging under the contacts. We're making sure, open, the rest wire sitting tight against the 6. The cat wire sitting tight against the centrals, and the rest wire sitting tight against the C. We're checking first for resistance form, pressing up and down, making sure there's no rock, and that's stopped by the rest wire at the back and the cat wire at the front, as well as a combination of tooth and soft tissue bearing from the acrylic. We're checking for retention by using our finger and gently flicking up and down on the solder, and that seems to be better on this side, and very slightly disengaging on this side. So we're going to tighten that up. I'm going to tighten it up by rolling down on the connector wire. We're going to grab the close end of the clasp wire, and we're going to roll it in towards the tooth at again at that 45-degree angle. We know that the loose part was the mesial, which is why I didn't adjust the distal. So again, thumb, roll, engage, press on the plastic, listen for the clicks. Now there's no give. We finish off by checking. Is that sore at all?
No.
Fantastic. So the spacing is adequate, but a little.
So there's good spacing between the solder and the tooth.
Of the distal and the outside.
A little less on the mesial, a bit more on the distal. So it's
Oh,
asymmetric. So we don't want asymmetry.
Throughout. But that's about the right level of spacing. That's a little bit excessive.
About 3/4 of a mil is what we're aiming for. But there's a bit too much in some areas and not enough in others.
Should be closer to about half that level.
That's the bite shelf. It's a 4 mil shelf that's visible, us, but it's too wide.
The headgear hooks are present. They're sitting a little bit high on that one.
The headgear hook we want as low as possible towards the crown of the tooth. Otherwise it'll get in the way of the lips.
We're looking for... It's always removed from the right side.
We always take it out from the right.
So we're looking at the pilot holes.
Pilot holes. Damage on the tooth model. Damage on the tooth model, which means it won't fit well.
We'll be concerned that it won't fit as nicely as possible. We're feeling for any roughness in the cut area. We're looking for the right length of clasp. So we want about 2.5 millimeters across. 2 mils, 2 and a bit. About 2.5 millimeters across.
And 2.5 to across.
We want to make sure the solder is wrapped on the buckle. And
complete wrapping of the crescent with the solder.
Fit surface on the buckle. And we're looking for the bevel to be cut towards the
right bevel. The arrow is visible.